All right, it's that time of the week again when we review all of the ways in which the media covers themselves in glory with our great friend, Katie Halper. She is host of The Katie Halper Show and co-host of the Useful Idiots podcast, which you can now find on Substack. You guys are sticking with Substack, right? You're not walking away.
Who knows what the controversy, the next controversy. Yes, we're staying there. We're staying.
So problematic, Katie.
Yeah, it's
so
extraordinarily problematic to see people like Matt Taibbi make a living in this world. That being said, our old friend Brian Stelter over at CNN had a hilarious moment on Sunday talking about Hunter Biden's book. We just had to play this for everybody. Let's take a listen.
I'll tell you what, I've read a lot of memoirs. I've never read a memoir like this one before. This is Hunter Biden's book, Beautiful Things, that comes out on Tuesday. It is extraordinary. You know, you've heard about Hunter Biden over the years. You've heard all the tabloid coverage of Hunter Biden. You think you know his story. We know that right-wing media is obsessed with him. Fox News always targeting him. And there are real questions to ask, including about that laptop that CBS is probing, that CBS asked Biden about in an interview that's airing today and airing again tomorrow. But this book about addiction, about how many times Hunter Biden could have died, the president's son, it's breathtaking.
I mean, just might as well have paid for the commercial there, Katie. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, what's really breathtaking, by the way, is the compassion that these people have for how many times he could have died when, again, Joe Biden spent much of his career actually making it much easier for people to die, not to be dramatic, but by locking people up who would have really benefited from the kind of treatment that Hunter Biden got. And, you know, it's just unbelievable to me. I mean, I do have a lot of empathy for what people go through with addiction. I just wish it were applied evenly to people, even when they're not the sons of the United States president. And, you know, I mean, it's even recently, right? We found out that the Biden administration was firing people who use marijuana, which I don't know what that means about Kamala Harris's position. Because as she bragged, of course, she has Jamaican heritage and so has smoked marijuana, something, by the way, her father disavowed her for, understandably. But yeah, I just think it's really, look, it's obviously he's really like using his connections yet once again. I guess it's not as much of a shame as an embarrassment as the Burisma stuff, but it's in that same vein. Yeah,
I think that you make a really good point, Katie, because I actually do have a lot of sympathy and empathy for Hunter and what he's been through, not only with his addiction struggle, losing his brother, losing his mom, like, you know, and his dad, I'm sure, was very busy and not always around. I know he famously rode the train home every day, but I don't think it's been an easy time for Hunter. And yet you accurately point out that there's so much sympathy for this one wealthy white person who happens to have a famous last name, but it's almost never applied to, you know, the politicians who help architected the system that makes it so painful for the vast majority of people who are suffering from addiction. That piece seems to never come up, and it is also never pointed out, and I understand that this is kind of uncomfortable, but that Biden himself, while he wants that treatment and empathy and grace for his own son, that's not the system that he was integral in ultimately creating in this country.
Right. And I mean, I think that there's been some improvement in the way he's classified certain drugs, but not as much as people want. And again, I mean, this is a guy, Biden bragged about not having empathy for millennials. So again, I just think there's such a disconnect. And literally, give me a break. I have no empathy for them. And again, I just really think that this should be an opportunity. And I think sometimes the tendency is to like hate on the person who's getting the better treatment than others. And of course, what we really should be doing is advocating for everyone to get that treatment. It's understandable that people point out how unfair it is. And yeah, I mean, it's funny that they're like, we don't really know a lot about Hunter. It's like, oh, maybe because they tried to censor the story about his laptop on Twitter. I mean, that would probably help us know more about him. But yeah, I actually do have a lot of empathy for him. And I think it's very hard, as you pointed out, Crystal, to be his son. And then that was so funny when people were losing their minds over how great Joe Biden was in that text exchange when he's like, I love you. I I mean, the other thing in that text exchange is that Hunter was like, you have to run. You have to run for me so that people can't say that I'm the reason you aren't president. And Biden... Yeah.
That's the other piece is they're doing the reverse of what Fox News does, right? So Fox loves the sensation, the tabloid, like they love that piece of it, and so they're going to go all in on the negative piece. CNN ignores all of that, but just goes in on like the positive angle that they can put on it, so no audience is getting a complete picture here.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I just really wish that Hunter Biden, hey Hunter, if you're watching this, we've got a lot of empathy for you. We're not throwing you under the bus, you may have noticed. We're not throwing you under the Amtrak. But you should use your voice right now. Use your voice to advocate for other people who are struggling with addiction, who don't have the access to very expensive rehab that you do. That's how you can really use this book tour in any way that has any integrity. So I think we just figured out his PR plan,
What bothered me more is even just the media treatment on this. Because, CBS asked him one question about the laptop. That was it. And we covered here.
They're probing it.
We covered on the show. I mean, Hunter was like, I was paid by the Burisma board because it was an FU to Putin, right? I mean, literally. I mean, he says his laptop was Russian intelligence. I think he's an outright liar, and he absolutely gets away with it. And it's just like, tongue bath from Brian Stelter. That's just not how you're supposed to treat these obvious conflicts of interest. And again, I've said this here before, Katie. It's not the most important story in the world. There are many other ones. But the treatment here informs how they do report on the most important stories in the world.
Right, exactly. It informs it and reflects it, right? So this is just one example of a very obvious praising. And in fact, it's almost great. It's helpful for us because it shows so unequivocally and obviously the kind of bias that they have. And what's even scarier, of course, is when they just are doing straight reporting as opposed to praising a book. And it's that same bias that's still there. But I also do think it's interesting, you mentioned that he's a liar. I got to say, having Joe Biden as a father, the contrast, like he's such a prolific liar, Joe Biden, that Hunter comes off as super honest. He comes off as
by comparison.
Like pathologically honest, by comparison. Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
He does lie in a very charming way.
I haven't read the book, so I don't know if he also got arrested freeing Nelson Mandela or whatever it was.
Exactly. Visiting him.
That might be that tale maybe in there as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
He maybe have just. I mean, if it's Hunter, he probably didn't get arrested visiting Nelson Mandela. Maybe he got some kind of non-carceral treatment for it, which of course everyone should.
Or a board seat out of it potentially.
Katie,
Katie, thank you. Great
thank
to see you.
See you.
Bye.
We'll have more Rising for you later today.